Welcome to the Woman's Connection. I'm Barrie Switzen, your moderator. The Woman's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned?
Welcome. There are many times when you have health issues and you go to talk to your mother and she doesn't know what's going on with you. Then again, she never knew because she wasn't educated. And possibly the only person that you can talk to is your doctor. But doctors aren't always that 100% knowledgeable because every individual is different. With me is Missy Lavender, who started a foundation called Women's Health Foundation. What else? And we're going to talk about the pelvic area on our bodies and get some enlightenment of how we can keep ourselves healthy into old age. And I would like to welcome Missy Lavender. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Barrie.
Let's start at the beginning. How and why did you start the Women's Health Foundation?
Very simply, I had a wonderful baby 16 years ago, and we like to say at the foundation that babies take souvenirs. And fortunately or unfortunately, he took his fair share and then some. And I ended up, about 4 months after delivering him, luckily making one call to a friend of mine complaining of several things below the belt that were bothering me. I couldn't walk without those big thick pads that they gave you in the hospital. I was in pain below the belt, down there, that's all I knew. It felt like things were starting to fall out, which is really uncomfortable. And sex with my husband wasn't particularly fun. And at that point, I really wanted just a prescription for Prozac. It was that bad. And she thankfully listened to me and said, you know, I know you think you want this antidepressant, but what you really need is to go see this lovely woman who is a urogynecologist. And I didn't have any idea what she was talking about. But what I learned later is urogynecology is that wonderful mix between gynecology and urology, where you come together and it's basically female pelvic medicine. And I went to see this woman 4 months after my son was born, and she literally could have bowled me over with a feather when she said that I looked like half of her patients. And I thought, really? Not my mom or my aunt or my grandmother, but me at 40 years old, I should be in this office? And then she started telling me about the tens of millions of other women that looked like me, and I thought, oh, that is not okay. But the real impetus, Barrie, was when I went back to my mommy friends and I talked to my mom's friends and my aunt's friends and my grandmother's friends, and I kept hearing, well, I have that. Oh, yeah, I know it. Yeah, that's me. But isn't that just part of being a woman or having a baby or getting older? And doesn't it just go away? I thought, we clearly need to do something. So that's when we started the foundation.
That's absolutely fantastic because people assume things are norm and it really isn't the norm. Let's start at like the beginning, where it transcends everybody.
Right.
Bladders.
Incontinence is the loss of urine when you don't want it to leak out of you. So real simple. And the question, first of all, is, does it bother you? Because it's very interesting that some people can leak a little bit and they don't care. Other people leak a lot and it bothers them, or a little and it bothers them. I was one of those latter people. It bothered me that I couldn't do what I want to do without wearing a pad. So it can be for a number of different reasons, but the first thing, Barrie, is to establish that there are two kinds. So there's the gotta go issue, which is called overactive bladder. And that's a lovely marketing term that was coined by one of the pharmaceutical companies who thought, well, who wants to be called incontinent? Nobody. It's not a very sexy word, but overactive, well, I'm overactive, so my bladder's overactive, I can identify. And when they started that campaign, it increased the number of doctor visits by 40% over the first 2 years, because women were like, oh my gosh, that's me. So overactive bladder may or may not lead to leaking. And when it does, it's called urge incontinence. And it goes along with frequency. So you get into that urgency frequency cycle of going all the time and then having to go really bad. That's type number one. Type number two is called stress incontinence, and that's when you laugh, cough, sneeze, and you leak. And the important thing for women to know, Barrie, is this is around bladder. The bladder is constantly contracting when you don't want it to, and it's a nerve issue, and it's the inability for the sphincter to hold closed if you're incontinent. So it's more nerve. And so the solutions for it are things like medicine, physical therapy, potentially a pacemaker, where this is more about muscle strength or pelvic floor damage. So it's a very different treatment path.
So wait a minute, you just said a pacemaker for urine incontinence? I can't.
Incontinence. I know who wants to be there.
I can't believe I can't say the word.
Incontinence, because it's a horrible word. Who wants to be that? Nobody. Yeah, incontinence.
Okay, so they want to put a pacemaker in?
Well, when women have failed all of the conservative treatments for overactive bladder or urgency incontinence, there is a treatment, and it's a good one when it works, where a type of a pacemaker is actually made by the people who make the heart pacemakers, is implanted in your rear end back here. And there's a little lead that stimulates the pudendal nerve, and the pudendal nerve basically innervates the pelvic floor. So it basically tells your bladder to calm down when it can't do it on its own. But it is something that happens after you have failed medication, physical therapy, and the more conservative treatments.
I can just see somebody wearing one of those and going through Checkpoint Charlie trying to board an airplane. I mean, your hip is going off. I mean, that's just too much.
It's not supposed to set off the screening things at the airport, but it does. It is a really valuable therapy for people that need it.
All right. Well, let's say not everybody can afford it because not everybody has health insurance, and that's becoming a bigger an issue as we go along. What are some of the things that somebody can do at home to fix themselves?
So the first thing is to try to understand which kind of issue you have with your bladder. Are you the gotta go person, or are you the laugh, cough, sneeze, and you leak, or do you have both? And at Women's Health Foundation, our focus is to teach women those really simple things they can do at home right now. So first thing is, if I'm overactive bladder person, I want to look at diet. Diet and exercise, Barrie, is really important in all parts of our body. But there are some things that are potential bladder irritants that a woman should look at. Understanding if I have 7 cups of coffee, that's a bladder irritant, it has caffeine in it, and it's a diuretic, that might make it more frequent that I'm in the bathroom. And it might irritate my bladder such that I have to go right away when I have to go. That's a mindfulness that we like to teach women. Tea, coffee, sodas, especially diet sodas that have caffeine, carbonation, and NutraSweet, the triple whammy. Those can be irritating, but also chocolate, all the things we love. Mexican
chocolate.
Food. No. Chocolate, citrus, spicy foods, tomatoes. So just like with a lot of other dietary issues, a woman would want to take herself off of it, the elimination diet, and then add things back one at a time and see if she notices an improvement. So that's on overactive bladder. Something that she can do with stress incontinence, you know, it's a muscular thing. So our pelvic floor muscles are a set of muscles that we probably are ignoring every day, but they're working right now when we're sitting here. They work when we stand up, sit down, move a limb. They're instinctive for us unless or until they don't work because of damage or injury or other things. So she can start to work those, and that's a whole discussion of how to do that.
Well, didn't you come up with a program on how to, I mean, you do have a video, I believe, on how to strengthen your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the basic ones? I mean, do you do this every day? Do you do it once a week? Do you do it when you're walking? Here in New York, you're riding the subway.
Well, we created a program called Total Control that is a full body fitness program, and it's based in the work of a wonderful physiotherapist in Canada, Diane Lee, who coined the term your pelvic pyramid. So the truth is we're more than our pelvic floors, but we have a deep set of muscles in the front, your transverse abdominals, your deep set of muscles in the back, your multifidi, and then your pelvic floor. And along with the diaphragm, they act as this container. So a lot of women will know transverse abdominals and multifidus if they've done Pilates, for example, or they've had any physical therapy. But they also work together with your pelvic floor. So interestingly, they are working right now. They're all three the muscles that help hold your structure and your balance and your posture whenever you're doing anything. And like I said, unless or until one of them gets injured, and then they turn off and other muscles turn on. So in Total Control, we'll teach you first to identify and isolate and move each of them individually, and then we'll put it all together while you're doing anything. from balancing or doing a leg lift or moving your arms. You want to energize your pelvic pyramid first.
This is a way to stay healthy, and it's a way to get healthy at the same time.
Right. The pelvic pyramid is one of those sets of muscles that is important to work as long as you're above ground, as I like to say. You know, women will ask us all the time, how long do I have to do these exercises? Well, as long as you're above ground. It's like your heart. You would never neglect your heart just because it was a Thursday.
I've heard about Kegel's exercises. How does that fit into the overall picture?
Good question. So Kegel rhymes with bagel. That's the first thing I want to say. So Kegels were developed by a physician in the 30s. His name was Kegel, as a way, as a word to define the pelvic floor muscle exercises. So your pelvic floor is really important because it holds up all the muscles in your pelvis, basically. It's the last set of muscles right here on the bottom. But it also closes around those openings. So when you're doing a Kegel, it's a little bit like the sensation you might have if you've ever tried to stop the flow of urine when you're on the toilet. That's not something we want you to ever do again, because when you're going to the bathroom, we want you to have that lovely moment. But women will get that sensation, oh, trying to stop the flow of urine, or trying to stop from passing gas in a crowded room. Those squeezes are pelvic floor exercises or Kegels. They're also your muscles, we've called them your muscles of sexual appreciation. So squeezing your vagina around something or someone, that's using parts of your pelvic floor muscle, also a Kegel. So it's kind of a nifty set of muscles that does a lot of different things.
At what age would somebody start with the Kegel exercises?
We generally recommend you Kegel somewhere around when you're starting to have sex, because that's when the muscles are going to have their first life stage experience.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, some people have sex, unfortunately, at 12 and 13, and others will wait for whatever reason. But somebody at that age to start also?
No, it's not necessary to do pelvic floor exercises at a young age for a young girl. That's why in our book we really talk about these as pretty fabulous muscles versus pelvic floor muscles. And it's really until you have a life experience that you're going to go through, like getting ready for pregnancy, that you want to start getting these muscles toned. And generally that's when women are in their 20s, 30s, or early 40s.
You wrote the book Below Your Belt, which is really great because I love the pictures, I love the information for young adults. It almost seems like this would be good for seniors.
Well, the seniors, ironically, pushed us with a feather into the girls. So at Women's Health Foundation, everything we do is created by starting with a research study. So we took our total control program, and very quickly, day one of the first program in Denver, I knew we needed a senior version. We needed a mobility-friendly version, if you will. So we created Total Control Platinum, and that study has been published. It was done with women average age of 80. They were so excited, Barrie, to learn about their bodies. They're like, why didn't I know this when I was younger? Why doesn't my granddaughter know this? And a lot of us, me included, had daughters or had been educators of children, and we thought, absolutely. So the study was actually girls 14 to 17, and they were urban girls, so half Hispanic, half African American, in Chicago. And it was pretty interesting to us, not that they didn't know anything about their body, we knew they wouldn't, but even though it wasn't what's called a prevalent study, we were seeing these girls showing up at that age already really symptomatic with some of these things like stress incontinence, that laugh, cough, sneeze, and you leak issue, chronic constipation, pelvic pain. And all you had to do was listen to them talk about what they ate or drank or how they used their bodies on the, like, I don't sit down on that toilet seat, that's nasty. We're like, okay, well, this is an issue. So Below Your Belt is actually written for girls 10 to 14 because we want to get them before they've had a period or maybe are starting to get their first period, because the other thing from that study is these girls had no idea why they were getting a period. They were told nothing by their mothers except that it was going to hurt, you should stay out of school and avoid gym class.
One of the things that you talk about in the book is how to go to the bathroom. Now, there was something I learned. I never heard of rolling back and forth and front and back. Why don't you talk about that and the whole procedure there?
Sure. It was really important to us, Barrie, in the book to talk about better bathroom behaviors, because the last time anyone has ever talked to about using the bathroom, they're 3, right? They're trying to get into the big girl panties and into the big girl room in preschool. And that's it. And so we often carry what our mother told us in potty training or the preschool teacher forward. And sometimes our mothers know best, and sometimes our mothers perpetuate what they were told, and on and on and on. Things like never sit down on a public toilet seat, right? The other thing that's happening is that we have a lot to do as women and girls. And so when we're in the bathroom, it's like, get in, get out, whoosh, like sit down, whoosh, go. Not good for your pelvic floor. So we came up with some better bathroom behaviors for girls of all ages at Women's Health Foundation. The first one is to sit down. And these were collected from our advisory board. And one of the doctors said, oh my gosh, I just want women to know they need to sit down. Take their pants off, raise their skirt, whatever it is, sit down, because functionally, this is a good position ergonomically to have a wonderful peeing experience. Hovering, not so good. And you're thinking, what is that about? Well, if you hover, and you can just imagine, you know, I'm hovering over the toilet now, nothing's relaxed down there. You know, my legs are squeezing, my bottom is holding on, and all that does is lift up my pelvic floor, and it's engaged, because remember, it's engaged all the time. And when you go to the bathroom and when you're ready to urinate, you really want that pelvic floor to relax so the bladder can contract and everything can come out like it's supposed to. So sit. We always say sit and take two because, again, we're all hyper busy and we want to have all that urine come out. And to that extent, that's where you get to rock and roll. So how many times have you ever had the experience where you've gone to the bathroom, you stand up, you go do something, and in like 10 or 15 minutes you think, gosh, I have to go to the bathroom again. And you sit down, and in fact, there's a bunch of urine there. Well, the bladder, if you think about it, is like a red balloon. It sort of fills up with urine. It's got a little closure here at the bottom. That's the knot in the balloon. That's your urethral sphincter. And then the thing dangling down, that's your urethra, where the urine comes out of the body, exits. So it's filling up, it's filling up, it's filling up. You sit down, the bladder contracts, the urethral sphincter opens, and it comes out of your body through the urethra. That's how it's supposed to happen. But as the bladder is emptying, it has little crevices in it. It's a little bit like a crumpled up baggie inside. And in those crevices, it can be where some residual urine hangs out. So just to make sure, because maybe I'm going for a run or I've got a meeting and I don't want to have to go again, we suggest that women sit on the toilet and just rock and roll front to back. A little bit like you're a belly dancer, but you're not moving off the toilet. You're sitting down. And it's really interesting how much urine can come out. You can even just rock your legs back and forth like this and see.
Okay. I have nothing to say to this. I think it's just really, I think it's very clever. I'm going to be telling this to people, you know.
Good.
Just, because we're not going to talk about men are incontinent also, and I've been reading more and more about it, and it's just like, okay, maybe they can learn, I don't know, but they stand up.
See, men are interesting. When they go to the bathroom to have a bowel movement, they have it all figured out ergonomically. They're sitting there like this, holding a newspaper, sitting forward with their pelvises tipped forward, which is the best position for having a bowel movement. It's not like us where we're all sitting there all, contracted and worried about whether it's going to smell or make some noise or something like that. So there's ergonomics when it comes to pooping just as well as there are when you're going to the bathroom and peeing.
All right, so ergonomically, what is the proper way to poop?
Yeah, there's a wonderful thing on the market now called the Squatty Potty, and we don't have any relationship with them. But what it does is it elevates your feet, and it causes you to open your legs up a little bit and rock a little bit forward. You can do that with any kind of a little stool in your own house. Maybe you have one of those kids' stools that your children stand on to brush your teeth. That's really helpful. Again, getting your body forward and letting the bowels the rectum kind of naturally eliminate things properly. But also rock and roll can be helpful for that. Some women have told us if they turn slightly to the right or to the left, it allows more feces to come out, whatever works. We just say, go with it. Twist, turn, sit, whatever, but really try not to be drawn back and have your pelvis tipped under. That's not going to help.
This is so great. I love this conversation. What about personal hygiene? What should you do or not do?
First of all, your vagina is a self-cleaning oven. So I want douching to be a thing of the past. It is not good to put anything inside of your vagina because most of the things that women are douching with are filled with chemicals and things that irritate the skin and lead you more prone to infections. That said, it's important again to be mindful about your vaginal health. So if you noticed an odor that's different, I mean, everyone has a smell. Their bodies have natural smells. That self-cleaning oven has a natural odor. But if you start to notice it changing, it's something that starts to have an unfamiliar or unpleasant smell, definitely want to go see your doctor, tell a healthcare professional. Or discharge. This was a big aha moment for the girl. So vaginal mucus or vaginal discharge is something that happens during your cycle normally. And we all notice that in our underwear from time to time, and it's okay and normal. But if it starts to change and change color in particular or have an odor, that's when you want to bring it up to your doctor because there's probably some type of an infection.
Talking about changing colors, let's go back to urine again.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference in the different colors? What does it mean? Some are really light that you can read a book through, and some are really heavy that you really need a magnifying glass. What do the different shades mean?
The urine color is really important. So women ask us all the time, how much water should I drink? How much water should I be drinking? And we use two tests. The first one's called the 8 Mississippi test, and I'll come back to that. And the second one is, what color is your urine? That's why in Below Your Belt we put the urination chart in there. It's super easy. So the ideal urine color is light yellow or straw colored. If it's clear, you're probably overhydrating. If it's dark, amber color in particular, and again that odor, that probably means you're not drinking enough. Now, the big but is if we're taking vitamins, vitamins are going to make it very vividly yellow. Vivid yellow is fine, especially if you're taking vitamins or supplements. Now, going back to the 8 Mississippi, this is my other favorite tip from another one of my advisory board members. So again, how many times during the day should I go to the bathroom? Women ask us all the time. Well, the average woman goes about 6 to 8 times during her waking day, and 0 to 1 time at night. That's important. So if you're getting up all the time at night,
You
pay
got a
attention.
problem.
You have an issue. So how you know if you're on the normal spectrum or you waited long enough to go to the bathroom, you can time it. So bladders start small with children. They expand with age, and then over 65 they shrink again. So an average woman should be able to hold 3 to 4 hours. And then when you sit down and you're having that lovely 2 minutes on the toilet, use the 8 Mississippi test. Because if you're sitting there and you 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, and you're done at 4, you probably haven't waited long enough. Or you've got something else going on in that urgency frequency cycle. So look at the color and then pay attention to the 8 Mississippi count.
How fascinating. I'm going to have to try the 8 Mississippi count. That is really very funny and very enlightening.
You know, we like to have fun with this at Women's Health Foundation, Barrie. I'm not making light of any of these conditions because when women have something going on below the belt that's not good, it's very distressing and it's on your brain all the time. But you know, we might as well come up with things like 8 Mississippi that help women remember and understand. And what I want to do is make it seductive and appealing for women to want to understand this incredible part of their body that they're probably not focusing on enough.
Well, it's kind of like it's always been swept under the carpet. You don't talk about it. And with the population aging and living longer, I think this is going to be becoming quite a hot topic.
I think pelvic health is something that every woman deserves, from little girl to super senior. And if you think about your pelvis, that's really the part of your body that separates you from men. It's not our breasts. They have those too. But you think about the pelvis, and my hypothesis has always been that pretty early in our culture, we shove our pelvises over here to the side. It's that kind of icky place we have to deal with once a month. And I don't want to look at it, touch it, know it, feel it, anything. Well, unfortunately, I think for a lot of women, it stays over here on the side. And then when you have these major life events or life stages, like definitely sex is all about your pelvis. Potentially, if you reproduce, that's a huge pelvic health event. And then if you live long enough, menopause is really a pelvic health event. So we'll get women after they've had a baby or two, or women over 50, and they're like, oh my gosh, my body is a train wreck. And of course it is, because you haven't had your pelvis in your health plan. So we want women to think about pelvic health through all the ages and life stages.
Urinary tract infections. That is probably part of maintaining healthy pelvic region.
Absolutely.
What do you suggest on that?
Well, it's a very common infection. It's probably the most common thing that women will seek a doctor's care for. So typically starts to show up when women are sexually active because bacteria can move around down there. I mean, if you look at, first of all, let's just establish we have 3 openings. That's a fun fact that a lot of women don't know. And if you have a moment to look at a mirror and to look at your body, you'll notice between the openings, the urethra and the vagina and the rectum is a very small space. So things like improper wiping is another big reason why you could have bacteria traveling, that type is E. coli, from the rectum to the urethra very easily. Wearing really tight clothing will tend to promote them as well. Things need to definitely air out. But when you start to feel that symptom, that burning or pain with urination, you very definitely want to go see your doctor and do things to help yourself along the way, keeping fully hydrated. Things like cranberry juice can have protective properties, but it's also a little bit irritating to the bladder. So it's kind of a yin-yang. You have to just know that there's research on either side of that.
Missy, you talk about Kegel exercises. How does one do them?
So a Kegel is a pelvic floor exercise, and the pelvic floor, as we've established, is a deep set of muscles. So it's not like your biceps that you're at the gym showing them off and working, and easy for a woman to understand how to do. So it's a great question, Barrie. The first thing is to progress it like any set of exercises. So we recommend women lie down, so on their back is a good position, and think about trying to close around those openings that we have down there. So trying to stop the flow of urine is a great one. Trying to hold back from passing gas is another analogy that we use. And analogies are really helpful for women to think about where those muscles are. If you're completely confused, I would recommend you put definitely lubricant on a finger, insert it into your vagina, hopefully you're comfortable doing that, and then squeeze and lift around those openings and see if you can feel your finger drawing up and into your body. If it's coming out or you're pressing down, that's called bearing down, and that's taking those muscles the wrong way. Definitely not the right thing. But important to understand that if you're doing these and you need some help, there are some wonderful coaches available. There are pelvic floor physical therapists who are amazing. I've never met a man, they're mostly women. They'll spend 20 to 50 minutes with you depending on your healthcare coverage, and they'll talk to you about a lot of things below the belt. But they will definitely help you find your pelvic floor muscles and make sure you're activating them. But also your OBGYN or your primary care doctor should be able to do this as well. So start on your back, start with some quick holds, hold and relax. We kind of do it to a waltz tempo, so lift, rest, rest. Do that for 10 because you need to have those short contractions when you're sneezing. Or then you finish and you want to do a couple of long holds because maybe you have to cough a couple of times, or maybe you're in a long sermon at church and you want to do a little bit of holding till you can walk to the bathroom. So do some quick holds and releases, and then maybe a couple of sets of 10-second holds. Do that every day, maybe twice a day. We always say 10 at 10 and 10 at 2, and you should be at least on your way to better pelvic health.
In the closing moments of the show, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I'd like every woman to know that she deserves to be healthy below your belt, below her belt. And if something is not positive or starting to show up in a way that you don't want, I want you to know that you're not alone. There are wonderful healthcare professionals, be it physical therapists, nurse, or doctors, who are there to help you. So go seek a referral from your doctor and get help, and keep asking till you're satisfied.
Missy, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. I hope you've learned something, because I know I have learned quite a bit. Love to hear from you. Please write us here at The Woman's Connection. Bye now.